What is the link between rock stars and bonsai trees? Hi there, I'm Greg Venning, and welcome back to the Questing Chiropractor Podcast, the podcast where we help you to find what makes your heart sing, your attractive factor, so you can structure the flow in your life for high performance with nurture, so you can change the world one person at a time with beautiful delivery, and you can expand and enjoy the profits that come from it. And in this episode of the Questing Chiropractor, we dive deep into the world of chiropractic care for babies and children with Mike Marinas. He shares insights from his journey of integrating his background in radio broadcasting with his passion for chiropractic, leading to an effective communication style with families and an impactful, joyful practice. Mike has used this to build and run successful practices as an associate and an owner in 2 countries, as well as becoming an internationally sought-after speaker and teacher. Listen specifically how Mike emphasizes a journey-based approach, how he lost his mojo and found it again with a worm in his pocket, and how he always serves from abundance. Mike discusses the importance of understanding and nurturing the functional development of children, aiming not just to address immediate problems, but also ensure their optimal growth into adulthood. He is a master at building a community in his practice with other healthcare providers and with chiropractors from around the world. Mike encourages us to acknowledge the potentially formative memories we create with each encounter with each person every day in our practice. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor Podcast. We help you grow as visionary, vital, and capable chiropractors who are always on. We do things differently as we help to elegantly awaken your innate wisdom within. We help you create robust, predictable, and trustworthy practices that serve oceans of people and yet still have free time for yourselves and your families. We use neuroscience to deliver better business results so that you can get greater, deeper, and more effective impact in more ways. We are Questing Chiropractors, and this is our story. All right, welcome back to the Questing Chiropractor. And today, as you know, we have Mike Marinas with us. Mike, in your most beautiful dulcet radio voice, say hello to all our listeners.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here.
And for those of you who don't know, I'm joking about a radio voice because, Mike, tell us about your radio and your background in broadcast radio.
Yeah, it's one of those things that at the time I was doing it, I was like, why am I doing this? Because it was taking a lot of time away from my practice. It wasn't paying me any money. I loved it, but I was kind of going, why am I doing this? And then only later in life did I realize my passion of seeing patients and communicating then came together. But I had to do the school of hard knocks by going into the radio stuff. So it's one of those things that oftentimes you wonder, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? And only later do you realize, that's what happened. So yeah, I cut my teeth with interviewing rock bands for years and years. And if I can do that, then I can communicate with just about anyone. You communicate with a musician before lunchtime. You're okay.
All right, so that was one of the places I really wanted to dig in with you, is my experience of you, having known you from varsity days and then through practice, and now as this expert in the world of babies and pediatrics and kids, is your ability to communicate is really powerful. And I wonder how much is intentional work you've done and how much is what you've picked up and how much is innate to you. And there's a couple of different realms, but when you think about it in that context, what do you think it is more?
I love doing it, and I love standing up and teaching because I know that every time something is going to connect in my head. It's the cool thing about it is you go into like this flow state, and then you've got all the information running around your head, and as you're talking about it, you go, oh, that makes sense. And then that link comes out, and then you explore that as you go. And then you're like, yes, this makes sense. That makes sense. That's wonderful. And then the thing is, I'm trying to make sense of it to myself. So I'm always trying to get the baseline understanding going. And if I can understand it, everyone else in the room is going to understand it, because I take a long time to understand stuff and I have to have it explained to me in Technicolor. So I think my brain has eventually started to understand the rest of me and has gone, okay, we have to explain things to him in a really dumbed down way. And if we can get that across, then but what's really nice about that is it gives me the ability to be able to then sort of get information and ideas and concepts across. And I think that's always the thing. Content is one thing, but being able to give someone else a concept allows them to take their own content and manipulate it for their own needs. And I think that's where the magic is.
So agree with you. Like in Quest, we tend to talk about how chiropractic is this conceptual thing first, with the content and the data way down the line. If we give the content and the data, it's almost like we're vomiting our university knowledge at people. And that stuff is useful and important, but it's useful and important in the background and drip fed specifically over time. Now, having been in one of your events, one of your seminars, it really does feel like we're going on this learning journey with you, not that you're teaching it at us. And I imagine that's probably what it's like for the mums, the families, the bubs in your practice, and that's potentially one of the reasons why you connect so well. Do you reckon that's part of the case?
Yeah, I think, it's always journey based, because life is always journey based. I always think to myself, my father's a karate instructor, and we've talked many times how many people would do karate if they didn't have the belts, because it's important to have a journey. It really is important to have a journey. You can't just go in and do this and do that. And you've got to have a starting place. And then you've got to have a place where you stop and you go, how far have I come? What's happened? What is my next thing I need to do? Great. When I do that thing, this is the next thing I'm going to get. And once you have a journey in place for people, that's when that story side of their brain kicks in, because we're all storytellers. We're storytellers and we're story listeners, and especially children. Children don't do hard, cold facts. Children do stories. You'll know that. You see kids in your practice. They'll come in and they'll go, Auntie Joan. Because, of course, Auntie Joan. Everyone knows Auntie Joan. We always go there on a Sunday. You know her because you're part of my wider story. And I think that's the thing. If you can put it into the concept into stories, if you can give the information via story, that's where people get it, because now they've got a starting point. They've got the middle where there's a bit of confusion, but then they start to see the end, and then they have the end, and the end of that book becomes the beginning of their book in practice. And then they get to go back to the first one and say, what happened in the first chapter? Yes, and now I'm taking those concepts. And as you rightly say, it's not about the content. The content you can find. It's being able to take that and mold those data sets and those information points to be able to give them to patients in a way that's relevant to them so that they can understand it. And then their journey sort of kicks off from where yours goes. So it's this whole intermingled idea of advancement for all of us. I think that's the thing. If you're not moving forward in your practice, or when you're learning or in your everything, you just haven't framed it correctly for yourself. And I think maybe that's something that I've always had to do, is go back, reframe it again, go, where am I going? Because I feel like I'm going in a circle. Maybe I'm just reading the wrong story.
That's ridiculously powerful. And as much as the people that we serve are on a journey and we're helping to bookend their journey and give them chapters and markers, like you said, we're on our own journey as well. And I wanted to then depart to, you mentioned your dad, which is perfect, because the next bit I wanted to talk about was this world of seeing babies, of seeing children, of maybe pediatric chiropractic. For you was not something you got from university. We went to the same university. We had very little. We maybe went to the Door of Hope if we were lucky, if one of our lecturers was doing that at the time. We were both fortunate to have that. But your journey into chiropractic care for babies and children is probably important, because you've also come across lots of people who are trying to get into that, and it's a significant block for some people. So where did your journey start?
Yeah. I'm really happy I had the journey I did have, because it always resonates when I hear other people talk about theirs. Like, if I find someone come into the office and they have the craziest cool job, like they dive for like something off, like an offshore, like just the craziest job. You go, how'd you go into it? Every time it's like, completely by accident. That's how that stuff generally works. And for me as well, man, I'm supposed to be touring the world with rock bands. I don't know. Actually, the funniest story about that, I was actually telling a patient today about that. When I qualified, I got these forms and everything from like Sony and Universal for, to say like, I'd like to sign up to be a medical part of the medical team and whatever. And when we moved to England, I found those forms. It turned out I just never sent them because in my first week of practice, I jumped in and my dad seeing a lot of babies. And I'm 25, man. I was like, I'm not interested in seeing babies. It's the furthest thing from what I want to do. And he was like, look, man, at this stage, I don't even take their phone numbers, man. We're talking dark ages now. So he's like, look, you are locuming for me. You have to come and do it. So I was like, oh my goodness. I still remember the first one that came in. I was like, what is going on? I feel woefully unprepared. I don't know what's going on. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I was like, what is this, man? Why is this? Why am I getting so involved in this? Why am I spending time away from the office looking things up? Why am I? And that was before YouTube and stuff. Like I'm finding books and stuff to try and find out what the heck's going on. And I was like, this is like burning a fire in me. Why is it doing this? And then I just kept going and I just kept going. And I think the joke of it is now I spend my day around people who just shout, they're loud, they throw up all the time, they've all got a drinking problem. And it's fine because I'm not with the rock bands, but I mean, it's pretty close. It's about the closest you're going to get.
It's exactly where my mind was going. The parallels between a baby and a rock star are just so good.
That's it. They're never completely dressed. It's how it goes. Yeah, they wear the craziest stuff, and they march to their own drum, which is fantastic.
So this journey, really, some of the beautiful parts of it. There's so many parts of the journey that choose us. We don't choose them. And like you say, you kind of stumble onto some of it because it's chosen you. So that was your intro into the world of seeing babies and kids. You've now been a lecturer, a mentor, an expert in the space for a fair bit of time. You've probably seen other people go through the journey of novice to someone who has some good expertise.
Yeah.
For somebody who wants to get into that, if one of our listeners is on this journey and is thinking of getting into the journey, what would you say is a starting point? What's a trajectory? What's maybe not an exact path to follow, but like, how do you reckon they should approach that?
So I think I'm going to say two things. I think number one, there are much easier ways of making money than working with children. But that's really important because if it is a fire for you, if it's something that just like my test is always this, if it's a Saturday afternoon, you've done all the stuff you wanted to do, kids are pooped from running around, wife is happily carrying on, you have 2 hours to yourself, what are you going to do? I am going to pick up a textbook and I'm going to go and have a look around and I'm going to find out why this or why that, or because it's in me. I just want to do it. So I think obviously no one has to, I mean, I'm a bit ridiculous, but it's to that level of, is it a thing that's a conscious thing with you a lot of the time? Are you really passionate about doing it? Because I think if that's the case, I don't have to tell you anything else, because then you will just do it, because then you will find all the opportunities. And the cool thing is, like, I mean, we both know you attract certain patients in your practice, and you attract them by the way that you think, you attract them by the things that you do, you attract them by the kind of environment you create, your online presence, your live presence. So all of that is geared towards the kind of patients that you'll bring in. I think you are so lucky now if you want to start getting into that journey of pediatrics, because you are spoilt for choice. There are so many wonderful people that now, in being in the age of being online, you can get access to stuff at the drop of a hat. I mean, if we wanted to get access to something, it was crazy. I mean, I remember saying to my wife, I think I'm going to have to go to America. And she was like, what are you talking about? Well, there's a guy and I have to go and listen to him and I have to go and learn from him. And then I'm like, well, then I'm going to have to go to Germany, because it's like now your access to these guys is unfettered. It's crazy. So I think you're spoiled for choice for doing it now. And I think if there was a time that you really wanted to get into pediatrics and upskill yourself, it's probably one of the best times in history to do that.
Yeah. It's certainly the age of the internet and being able to connect with people on a screen has really made
Mm.
learning exponential for us. And for the
Yeah.
listeners at the end of the show, we are going to give Mike a chance to put out his links to how he can help you go in that process as well, because Mike's got some really good content that he puts out that will
Yeah,
be
cool.
really helpful. You touched on the idea of attracting people into your practice, and you've built a practice, one in Joburg in South Africa. Now you're building one in Southampton in the UK. My impression is, and what I've heard from some of the people you work with, is that you work really hard, but you built a really solid base of people that see you over there in the UK in a reasonably good amount of time. What was some of your success from taking what you learned from building your own here
Yeah.
and then building in somebody else's? So one is
Mm.
practice owner, one is associate contractor.
Yeah. Very good. Very good point. Um, I think one of the things that I got wrong, let me start with that. One of the things I got wrong, and it got pointed out to me by a patient that had immigrated as well, arrived in Southampton as well. Well, close enough. Came to see me with their second child, seen me with the first child in South Africa. I moved over to the UK during COVID. Everything was all over the place. I have this habit of trying to set up with like the best in business. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I started that with my dad, and then of course now into the UK working at Steve Williams's place. So you really are working next door to like the greats, which is wonderful, but it also comes along with its own things, because you get swallowed up in that a lot of the time. So the one thing I did wrong, I'll never forget, she came into the room and she looked around and she just said, "This is not your room." I thought, I don't know what she's talking about. She's like, "Your room has toys everywhere," because that's what it was before. And I looked around and Greg, I wanted to cry because that was it. I had taken on all the stuff that was happening to me and hadn't taken everything that was inside and put it outside. And that's what always works for me. And I just hadn't done that. And it was from that moment on, I was like, right, she's absolutely right. Next time I went to South Africa, a bag came back with me with toys, and that was it. And it irritates everyone because everyone that steps into my room is always standing on a Lego or standing on a thing. But that's what it is. That's what it is for me. And I think that sort of happiness, joyfulness about being in there, that had left initially. And the moment that came back, I was A for away because then all of a sudden you start getting people saying, I want to speak to, and this is something that happens to me all the time, is I want to book in with the happy guy. I want to book in with a South African guy that's laughing. I want to book it. Literally, this is the stuff that they say. Like, I want to book it, and like I come out there into the front with like I've got plastic worms in my pocket. I've got a snake around my thing. I've always got a toy in my pocket. Like they know that. It's literally it's like Patch Adams stuff, but it's just that's what works for me. That's what it is, and I think that's what worked initially, and I held that back when I arrived here because something in my brain said you have to fit in with everything. And you go, hang on a second, that's not why people see you. They don't see you because you're a drone and you fit in with everything. They see you because of what you have become from seeing all the other people. I'm a big proponent of this. This might be a bit airy fairy, but I have this big feeling that like everyone that you come into contact with is kind of like a little bit of sandpaper, and they'll do a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and they sculpt you as you
Yes.
go. So when I get a new baby coming in, they're seeing thousands of babies before that, and that's what's got there. So that's why they want to come, because there's all of this. It's like an inertia that builds with you as you go. That's why when you see these older guys, there's something, but you don't know what that thing is. And for me, that's my explanation of it, is it's so much history that comes with them, and so much of this energy transfer that you've just been doing over years and years and years. And the moment I kind of opened that up again, I was like, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, a GP wants to speak to you, or a lactation consultant wants to speak to you. And then I want to speak to them because now I've got my happiness back into who I am. And I'm going to talk to you from my point of view. And I'm happy to walk into their office with, like a little worm hanging out of my pocket because it's what I do. And before that, it just wasn't happening. And the thing is, it tanked. And I think that's the thing, is just like however like bad or crazy or whatever it gets, that thing that you're building, and again, it's story, man. I lost my story. Like, I get that this is a very never-ending story, but I lost my story, and then I kind of picked it up again. And I think my journey is always trying to find out where I'm going. But that, for me, being open, speaking to the people, and just, I think, having care. I think that's the thing, man. If people can just work out how much you care, I think we said it in Joburg, like the parents will never, parents and practitioners as well, they don't care how much you know. They don't really care what you did. They care how they feel. And if you can give that at the end of the day, that's what builds it.
So much gold in there as well, man. And what you found in our questing language is you found your attractive factor again. And without our own attractive factor that attracts us, that lights us up, we talk about doing things that make your heart sing. Well, then nobody's going to come and watch your fire burning because your fire is sputtering out. But when you find what makes your heart sing, your fire burns. People come around you to warm from that fire.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
a beautiful one. Now, you touched on the next bit that I wanted to talk about with you that I find is a superpower of yours, is this idea of building a community within your practices, within the multidisciplinary team that you work with around your practices for the people you care for, and within the profession of chiropractic. Those are three different spheres, and I've seen you over and over again build community, build massive trust, build loyalty if you want it. But what is it? What do you do, man? How are you building community over and over and over again on different levels?
Yeah, I think I'm. It's really important to me that I'm not in this by myself. I think that's the biggest thing. You always want to be something that's bigger than the sum of its parts. And I think at the end of the day, people will benefit from whatever you can bring them. And I think if you can bring, it doesn't always have to be you. And I think this is like a humbling thing that is taking me forever to learn. Because again, it takes me forever to learn stuff. But it's, if I can bring me and the people I know into a situation that ends up getting a better result for a practitioner, ends up getting a better result. Like on our masterclass the other day, I had a phenomenal friend of mine who is so much better than I am at neuro stuff. But bring her on because she's fantastic, and when she talks neuro, that passion, it's crazy, And she's from Cyprus, she gets proper passion, and that's the thing. Like she gets into it, and then the thing is, she then becomes part of the wider community, And I think, yeah, I mean, when I think the saddest thing for me would be to go to sleep at night and think that it's just me. Like, you know, I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but like, I never want to feel like it's just me that's on the journey, because there's so much else around. There's so many other people that could be part of it that make it this wider thing. I mean, like you hold a special place for me in my journey. And I mean, I'm like, when I got to the UK, you talk about community. This was a really important part, and I really need to speak about it, where you got hold of me, and I was just in the depths, and you had no idea that was the thing, but you were part of my community. So the thing is, when I needed someone to lift me up, and you gave me an invite to one of the quest things that literally just, and I've said this to you before, is that this is what kept me going on the track that I'm on. I could very well have packed my bags. But the thing is, that's the absolute point, is that if you create community, it means that you can sometimes be in the leadership position, and you can sometimes pull the boat along, but sometimes you sit in the back of the boat, and it is the most magical feeling to feel the boat moving and go, who's pulling that? And then go, oh my goodness, it's this energy give and take. I'm not in the position to do it right now, but part of my community now is in the position to be able to help me. And I think that at the end of the day, I mean, that's being human.
Yeah, the concept that's been strong for me that I try to take on, that you've just enunciated better than I could, is interdependence, not independence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's what we try and create with children, right? You don't want a dependent child, because that's ridiculous, because that's just a kid that's on you all the time. But you also, which is the weird thing, Western society pushes an independent child. That's nonsense. You don't need an independent child. That's a child that doesn't work in a social situation. What you need is an interdependent person that's able to work within a group, go out, do their thing, come back to the group, and be able to be like a constructive member of a wider society.
So this exact frame that you've just spoken about there, this kind of maybe not even the end result, but it's certainly a future paced place we would love these little babies and children that come to us to be able to get to. What's happening in their adulthood is very much in your mind while you're seeing them as babies. Now, you and I both come from the school of thought of like, come in 1 to 3 times, and if I don't fix you, then you're gone. And even if I do fix you in 3 times, then you need to go away. Now, I know you're not about kind of coming to see me every week for the rest of your life, but I have seen your growth, and I've gone on a similar trajectory of from this kind of almost one and done towards this idea of, well, actually, there is some space for us to look after and to try and optimize the function of this person that we're dealing with. Tell me a little bit about this trajectory that you've gone on in that shift of frame.
Yeah, I mean, I've changed my whole mindset of I'm there initially to problem solve, because that's the point of me being in my office. It's the point of my phone number being on out there. It's the point of you coming in. You have a problem. I need to solve that problem. However, this is like we were just talking before we came on. Now we were talking just about like podcast stuff because we're both a bit geeky about it. So I didn't know a bunch of the stuff you were telling me about. But if I'd only come into you and said, Greg, I've got a problem with just a microphone, and then you said, well, there's your microphone problem, and we didn't get to talking, you were talking about, oh, there's a headphone thing, and have you seen this camera thing, and all of a sudden, whoa, I've got a lot more stuff that could be better. I didn't realize that you do all this other stuff. Yeah, man, of course I do. And I've moved myself now from, I want to get out of that place of that sick well line. Like I talk about that a lot. Like I want to get you over that sick well line because then your initial problem goes away. However, I do want to open up to you, and it's your choice, but I want to open up to you from not being sick to being the best that you could be. That is like, when are you done with yoga? Like, when are you done with the salads? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's good for you. And the thing is, I do get though, and I have an issue with come in, sit down, crack this, crack that, go. Come in, crack this, crack that. That's not a journey. That's you're coming back. So with kids, it's all about journey, right? So I had this today where we've just fixed up a horrible reflux case. Everything is working really nicely now. And then I said to the mom at the end, so at 6 months, what we're expecting is this sitting up and this. And she said to me, "Oh, thank goodness, because I thought I wasn't going to have a reason to come and see you."
Wow.
Because it's not about, and I think we make this mistake of it's about the treatment because it is, but we forget their journey. And we forget that it's not just for us to cut that off, because they're getting a lot out of being with us. And yes, part of that is the treatment, but the other part is what we get to give them and what they get out of being there. And it's up to you as the practitioner. Do you want to just give them this much and then focus on your stuff? That's perfect. I see myself, especially with kids, much more like a coach now, because now I get excited. Like, we've got this right. The next thing that's going to happen is they're going to be on their tummy, but wait for it, because now they're going to move their weight to the side and they're going to put their arm out. The first time he reaches out for something, send me a picture of it. I'm invested. I'm involved. I want to know what's happening. And then the picture comes and then they go, is this right? Are they doing? And the thing is, you don't have to be in my office. We're still having the exchange of energy, man, because it's still, and this is the thing, like, it's getting away from that wider, like, the patient must be in my office thing. Like, it's community. They're part of what we're doing. They're part of what we're talking about. They will talk to other people. My office will be full. That's okay. But the thing is, and I think that's where the people think, wow, they're sitting with like a black cloak on going like, people must just come in and I'm just going to adjust them all the time. And it's not that. It's about opening up and saying, it's the journey. You don't have to come on it, but this is what I'm offering. And I think it's so important, because otherwise, I mean, I had once where I fluffed it completely, where I'd done everything and I did my whole closing speech. You know, I used to have a closing speech. What is wrong with me? I used to have a speech of going like, "We're done." Like I'd scripted it out, I'd worked it out, and I was like, "And this is why we done this, and this is why we done that, and that's it." And then I just got this look of like, "Oh, all right. I was quite keen to come back." And then you're like, what have you just done? You've literally talked someone out of, but the thing is, you've just done it. So it's done. So that's it. You know, you've just said to them, this is as much as I can do for you. And if you feel that's as much as you can do for them, awesome. But I mean, you know, my work, we go on and we go through and we go to the next level and we go through to what's the next thing you're going to do? Oh, you become a sports person. Awesome. Just make sure the training's right and your core's right and all that stuff. So it depends where you want to go with them, I suppose.
And that's what's been amazing about watching you develop is for every level that you've been able to take them to, you've then gone and done the work to figure out, well, what happens at the next level? How can I be part of that? And for what it seems from the outside is you're constantly increasing the value that you can offer within that chiropractic paradigm. And not everything is around the adjustment. There's other ways you can be offering value as you go. And I've just seen you consistently grow. So you're offering them a bigger future because you're growing with them into the future.
Yeah. And the thing is, I want to be able to offer the next step. And as I go, I have to figure out what that thing is, you know, and I have to figure out, then I have to figure out what am I happy with working with? I'm not a big neuro guy. It's cool. There are big neuro people. I'm a big functional guy, and that's what works for me. And I'm figuring that stuff out. But yeah, it's exactly that. You want to figure out how can I add value to the next step of this person's journey, and if I can't add value, should I be doing more work to be able to add value, or is this where I call it? This is I'm not into any more of this. And I think the cool thing is both of those are fine.
Yes. I think the important part is that we've judiciously examined that for ourselves and we've answered this question. Otherwise, you end up the begrudging 50-year-old with all the regrets because you never really asked yourself the tricky questions while you were going. Like you've said, I'm always asking myself, where am I going with this? And it's so important for us to be asking ourselves those tricky questions and be okay not knowing the answer for a hell of a long time until that next part of the journey finds us again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does that. It's I hate it and I love it because I've also, like, with teaching stuff now, I've started to realize, like, and I was speaking to Steve about this, and I was so glad someone else had this happen to them because I thought I was just special, like in a very bad way. Because like I'd have all of the stuff together, but like a golden thread would be missing of a concept. And then I was like, now I've got to the point where I'm like, it's fine. It will come. It will come. Even if it comes the day before I arrive to do the thing, it will come. It will be there. And I said to Steve, like, does this happen to you? And I'm not going to say what he said, but because that's his journey. But it turns out I'm not alone. You know, I'm not alone. The stuff happens like that. But that's why it's exciting. That's why it's cool. That's why it's like golf. That's why it keeps bringing us back the whole time. You know, it's that's what keeps it interesting.
I love the energy in you, man. I want to run back. You've said that your frame, your context that you put, or the data that you research that you do is into this functional frame. Tell us more about this functional frame. Tell us more about what you're putting together and what you're offering.
Yeah, so I mean, my whole thing at the moment is movement drives everything. And if I can get you to move better, I can get you to think better, and I can get you to develop better. And I think one of the key things about kids that we always mix up is we wait for a symptom. And it's like, man, the symptoms arrive later. That's the problem. We have to be able to functionally assess kids to be able to go, are you working properly? Is the tree going properly? So one of the pictures that's on a lot of my teaching now is a bonsai tree, because that's how I'm feeling at the moment. It's all about clipping the bonsai here, looking there, making sure. And these things don't happen in a day. They happen over time. But as long as we can make sure that as I work with a child, in the background, I have the silhouette of the adult of where we're going. And the thing is that, like, the promise that I make when they come in is not to the child, weirdly, it's to who they're going to become. because who they're going to become eventually is going to want to scuba dive. They might want to, whatever we can do at that stage, jetpacks, fly, whatever. They are going to want to have a body that they can use as well as they can. And it's up to me to deliver that right now. And that's where my functional mindset comes from. I want to be able to deliver that body to you later. And it's up to me to make sure that it doesn't go pear-shaped now, because if it does, then it's all sorts of fixing up. Then it becomes the adult patience of, oh, my shoulder's been done for 20 years. And you're like, yeah, because I see the way you stand and I see the way this happens. And and doing all the like development stuff, you can see where it comes from. And working on it as kids is it's just the most magic thing.
That is such a powerful frame of having the silhouette of the adult they're going to become is actually the person you're serving. That just calls us to such a higher level of service, or it calls me to such a higher level of service in every moment, in every interaction, and even between every interaction, to figure out the things I can't figure out just yet, or find the place for them to go to figure that out.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. There are two things that get me. The one is that, and the second one is you never know what sticks in a kid's mind. Like I have a memory of going to a country and western show with my father in Johannesburg. Oh, there was a country western show. Either way, it was there. And I remember going into the bathroom, and I remember seeing the guy that was just playing guitar on the stage in the bathroom as well, and washed my hands or whatever, and we'd all finished up. We were walking out. He put his hand on my shoulder and he was like, "It was nice. I saw you in there. Oh, one day you're going to play guitar." Oh my room is just full of guitars. Is that a moment that stuck? Does he know? No. He would never know that was a moment that stuck in my head. So that's the other thing, is every time you work with kids, you think, is this a formative moment? Or are they just going to forget this? Because am I dropping something in here that's just going to change what's happening with this kid? Or is it a moment that's just going to go, and maybe that moment will be next time? And what that does is cause you to a level of going, every interaction you need to act like the potential is there, that's going to be a formative memory for that kid. And I think for me, it's such a big thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's the concept that I've heard it called before is there are no ordinary moments.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Within Quest, Mark Postles often talks about holding a baby that's a newborn or a young child or something, and just going, you could make an amazing chiropractor. And kind of saying that from the beginning and opening this world of possibility that very well may come true. And in his practice, I think his count is more than 50 people have come through his practice and become chiropractors based on some of that influence.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, that is gorgeous.
That's incredible.
Now, Mike, your work in this functional realm, tell us more about some of your offerings. Tell us where we can find out more about your beautiful approach to the world of babies and children in chiropractic.
Cool, man. So everything of mine lives on connectedpediatrics.com. It is the European spelling. I'm afraid it's PAE. We have just bought the other domain as well, so give it a couple of minutes and it'll be
we'll
both
put it in the show
spellings.
notes. It's okay.
But connectedpediatrics.com. That's where you find everything about me. So you'll find out where I'm going to be live. The next 2 years is insane in terms of travel. We're going to be doing what we call Peds in Motion. Peds in Motion is my new functional course, which takes you right from fetal development right the way through to adolescence, and how the body moves and how we can get involved with that. Also got like introductions and management of the newborn. We work with older kids, all sorts. So all of those live courses are there. And you can see all the links to those. I've also got what I just came off now, which is the thing that literally is my baby at the moment, which is our Connected Pediatric monthly subscription, which I'm very proud to say you're a member of. And what we do with that is there's just consistent information once every 2 weeks. There's just consistent information that comes at you. We've got a technique bank there, so you can go and see the information, go back to the technique, see how everything works. It's all there for you. It's all app-based as well, which is nice. So it's on your phone. Which is great. And and then again, you become part of the community and you get to, just today we were linking up people that have just moved into New Zealand with people that are in Toronto. It's mad because, we're all a small group, but we are a very tight-knit group, and now we know each other, and we can organize things with each other and what have you. So there's a community in there, plus there's upskilling. So yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
And for all of our listeners, the live seminars I've been to of yours, Mike, I pick up nuggets of gold, and I'll use the word biomechanics, but it was so much more than that. That biomechanics talk that you did down in Cape Town about going from sitting to crawling, that was life-changing for me. And the amount that I can then offer that to parents of, cool, here's the next stage, and here's what they're going to do, and here's what you can do to help it. And oh man, like you just deliver gold, whether it's online or in person. So for any listeners, please go and check that
And you're
out.
always up front as well.
I'm a nerd.
You're always right at the front.
Yeah, that's the way I go. All right, Mike, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I feel like there's so much in here. Maybe we can do a round 2 as we go. Everybody, you can check out all of Mike's things at connectedpediatrics.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. If you've listened to this, if you've watched this and you found any value in it, I bet you one of your colleagues would find value in it, one of your friends. Please share it with them. Please send them a link. Please give us some ratings on wherever you're watching or listening to this. Click subscribe, give us up to a 5-star rating. The more that you do that, the more that we can bring more people like Mike onto the podcast. Maybe more we'll bring him back. And it really does just share the love, and it builds the community like Mike said. So Mike, thank you very much. We loved having you on. And yeah, it's been special just catching up with a friend as well.
Lovely. Thanks very much. And your work is amazing. Yeah, as I was saying, it's really interesting because now I get to listen to you at normal speed instead of 1.5.
Cheers.